feel connected with this next guy for a couple different reasons. He's from Indiana. My wife is from Indiana. He went to Ball State. My wife spent some time. She finished up her grad degree and PhD here at Alabama, but went to Ball State, went to Muncie Southside. He went to Warren High School in Indy, and so I feel connected that we are kind of understand where the background there. Jason Whitlock, you know him from a lot of different places. He's made some transitions. We're going to talk about that. Jason, welcome back to Tuscaloosa, man. I hope you're having an awesome day.
I am, and thanks for having me.
You know, the one thing that I miss about being back in Indiana is that wonderful pork tenderloin sandwich that you see everywhere. Nobody offers that like the state of Indiana.
There's some things I miss about Indianapolis and Indiana. The barbecue's probably not at the top of my list, although my dad was a great guy on the grill, and at his bar we'd have some great barbecues. But, you know, having lived in Kansas City for 16 years, I'm kind of partial to Kansas City barbecue.
Oh, there's no doubt, man. I just love good food, man. I mean, I just love good food. I always tell my audience, you never trust a skinny guy to tell you a good place to eat, man.
That is probably true.
Jason, I want to get your thoughts on a lot of different things, but first, let's talk about the transition. You've made a change about 10 days ago. Tell me more. What are you guys planning to do there with OutKick.com?
Well, I decided to leave Fox Sports 1 and the TV show I was doing because I had the opportunity to partner with Clay Travis and a guy named Sam Savage, who's handling the business side of it, on OutKick. And it really came down to a realization that the guys in the media that were having the biggest impact and reaching their highest level of financial reward were guys that were willing to take the risk and build their own platforms and go about it the independent route. Whether people like him or not, look at the guy Dave Portnoy at Barstool, Bill Simmons with The Ringer, Joe Rogan, what he's done with his podcast network, and a bunch of other people I could name. And so I just felt like this was a unique opportunity for me at age 53. If I was going to make this move to go an independent route, I needed to do it now. And so I've partnered with Clay Travis at OutKick and writing columns right now, but eventually once I move to Nashville at the 1st of August, I'm going to start doing podcasts and videos along with the writing. And so we're going to try to build OutKick into, you know, the most powerful sports media platform going.
Well, it's obviously very, very popular, and it was. I mean, I still remember a guy that we feature here often, Aaron Torres. We feature him weekly. I know he was originally with your website on OutKick and worked with Clay and offers strong opinions. And I think that's what the world's looking for, man. They're hungry for an avenue in a medium that you guys can offer, and you can combine that written, video, audio, podcast, all that tied together. So I'm excited about what you guys are going to be able to do. And if you want more information, you can simply go to OutKick.com. And I did, and I want to talk about this story. Hashtag fake news story proves racism is our new religion. Jason, kind of talk about what you wanted to people to walk away after reading that article.
That the social media and the mainstream media have made race and politics our number one value or how we look at the world. And as someone who grew up in the church, grew up a Christian, and whose Christian beliefs are really blossoming as an adult, I just look at so many people who consider themselves Christian or who consider themselves religious in some form who have prioritized race and politics well above their faith in God. And I think that's one of the reasons why this country is becoming more and more racially divided. The media is jamming that down our throats, is jamming race and politics down our throats and trying to divide us. And if people that have religious faith, if you don't, this suggests this isn't for you, but if you do have some sort of religious faith, you should be interpreting the world and trying to align your actions with what best represents your spiritual religious values. social media has made everyone interpret the world through identity politics, and the first one being your race. And so people start formulating opinions about different aspects and different controversies based on, well, how am I supposed to feel about this as a black person? And then the other ones are, how am I supposed to feel about this based on my sexuality? And I just think that's inappropriate. It's divisive. And if we went back to, how do I feel about this based off of my Christian views, my faith in my Jewish religious views, my Muslim religious views, my Catholic religious views, if people started interpreting life that way, I think we'd all be a lot healthier.
Jason, what role do you think media plays in, we could look at the NASCAR because that's within our state here. You could look at anything across the current society. What role do you think media plays in all of this?
Well, in terms of the controversies and the divide, I think it plays a major role because I think the media, in search of relevance, in search of television ratings, in search of clicks online, leans into explaining everything in the most racially divisive way possible. I'm going to give you a controversial example that I'm going to write about at some point on OutKick. I may do it today, I may do it next week, but let's take the controversial murder in Minneapolis related to George Floyd. I think everybody that saw that video was like, this is a crime, this is wrong, this can't be tolerated. The media jams on this extra layer of, and it was racist, what happened. And I'm not so sure, I haven't been seeing any proof that it was racially motivated, because I think what happens with a lot of policemen is they get drunk on their power, and there's an abuse of power, and there's an arrogance and an entitlement that goes along with that power that makes them go overboard and abuse their power, and that's what I tend to think happened there with Derek Chauvin, the policeman that's going to be charged, that's been charged with murder or homicide in that case. I think there's more proof of that than perhaps he was driven by race. Maybe he was, but it's all speculation. But if the media properly explained it as an abuse of power, and again, it's a criminal abuse of power. The guy needs to go to jail for a long time. But if we explained it that way, I think there would be more people committed to, hey, we got to stop police from abusing their power in this way. But once you inject race into it, particularly without any real proof, you've now made it a bit more polarizing. You've put a lot of white people on the defensive because you're now trying to say this explains all white police, this explains all white people, they're all racist, and they're all just out trying to destroy us. And now people are on the defensive. Whereas if you explained it as an abuse of power, that happens to white people as well as black people. There are stats about how many unarmed people or how many people the police kill a year. And it's more white people than black people. It's more white people than Hispanic people. And the numbers, the gap is pretty significant. And so I just think the problems are always explained in the most divisive way possible because that leads to clicks and ratings, and not in a way that promotes understanding and progress and common ground between us. That's where I blame the media, always looking for an opportunity to divide or be sensational rather than, hey, how can we find common ground? How can we explain a problem in a way that everybody can wrap their minds around without getting on the defensive, and then we can fix these problems?
Jason, I fear that as media, and I've been pretty transparent this week talking about the role of media, but this NASCAR situation with Bubba Wallace and the way that I saw that first up hand and close, that you could create a really I don't know if you want to say race war, but just it's scary. Like it's scary to see the role in media that we play, the influence that we can make. And I've told my audience, I said, if you give me 3 days and 4 hours every day, we do a 4-hour show, I could convince in 3 days that Nick Saban's a bad football coach. I think I can. I can get at least 50% on my side. And I said, that's a scary tool that we have in our tool bag. And it's scary as I look ahead and see the division that's created in our country.
I blame social media more than I do the mainstream media. We're all addicted to social media, and the executives and the corporate sponsors of media are addicted to social media, and social media asks all of us to be divisive and polarizing. That's the way to build audience. That's the way to get retweets and likes and to feed that dopamine high. But yeah, I think what transpired here with Bubba Wallace and NASCAR at Talladega is a prime example of what social media has done. Now, I also blame NASCAR because I for the life of me, I can't understand why they put out a statement to the media within a couple of hours of learning of this, why they didn't first investigate it and reach the conclusion that I think some people on the internet reached within 12 to 24 hours. People on the internet had proven, like, hey, this thing had been here at least a year ago. The rope with the knot or noose, whatever you want to call it, had been here for at least a year. NASCAR could have figured that out, given us an explanation after they had figured that out, instead of immediately going to the media and then spending all of Monday leaning into that narrative that Bubba was the victim of this hate crime. And, you know, it worked. I think it probably boosted the television ratings on Monday. It made NASCAR at the top of the news cycle for 24 to 48 hours. But did it help America overall in this time when there's so much racial tension and divide in this country? Was there a better way to handle it? I think so.
Jason, what is the solution currently in our society? Do you have a way that we can all get unified?
It's tough, and look, these are my personal views. Obviously, anything I say is that, but I mean, for me, it's real simple, man. We are going to have to, those of us who claim a religious faith, we're going to have to actually live it, and we need to return to those values. And I have this conversation with my family all the time. I ask them, hey, in your conversations on a daily basis, how much are you talking politics versus how much are you talking about God? And what are you really worshiping, politics, or are you worshiping God? Your actions seem to indicate that maybe you're actually worshiping politics, and maybe you say the name Donald Trump 100 times more a week than you ever say the name Jesus Christ. I just think that's inappropriate, and we've just gone too far. All the country, not just my family, but everybody. We've just gone too far with this political thing, and we worship politicians, we worship celebrities, we worship everything but God. And until we dial that back and get some balance or, go the other direction in our obsession, we're going to have problems here in America. And our society is being made more and more secular, and I'm sorry to sound like a religious crusader, but I do think that's at the heart of our problem. We've just gone way too far with politics and race, and we have abandoned the values that even America, even when it was flawed, and I mean just horribly flawed, and we're still flawed, but when it was horribly flawed with segregation and Jim Crow laws and things like that, people did, even in their sin, they still paid attention to their religious faith and values, and that's one of the reasons why we overcame those flaws and improved upon those flaws. But we've just totally abandoned it, and I just think it's a mistake.
What is your opinion on the Black Lives Matter movement?
I think that most people are very naive about their view on Black Lives Matter. Most people haven't done the homework and don't understand that it's a political organization driven by a Marxist ideology. And when people say Marxist, I think a lot of people don't understand what Marxism is. They haven't done their own research, and they just hear it and blow it off and just think, well, it's just some abstract political strategy, no different than being conservative or liberal or libertarian or whatever. But Karl Marx, the father of communism, it's his political theory and ideology, and it is an anti-religious ideology. Communist countries driven by Marxism, outlaw religion, the practice of religion. Being an atheist is the state's religion. And Black Lives Matter, the founders of it, have admitted publicly that they are well-versed in Marxist ideology, have been trained in Marxist ideology, and that is what's driving it. And so I don't think that Black Lives Matter cares about black men. I think it's a front, it's a beard. I think that if they really cared about the death, the homicide, the murder of black men, they wouldn't wait until they find out the race of the killer before deciding if they're outraged or not. I think that just blows up their whole narrative that somehow they're really concerned with black life. They're really only concerned with the perpetrator of the killer. The perpetrator is the most important, not the victim. That's why so many black murders can go on, and Black Lives Matter will say nothing, lead no protest, won't show up in that city. But if the perpetrator's white, they'll show up and wreak havoc and raise hell and pretend like they care about black life. But listen, there was a kid, a 3-year-old boy killed in Chicago over Father's Day weekend, got caught in gang shooting crossfire. No one said a word. More than 100 people shot, more than, I think, 20-some-odd murders in a 3-day span in Chicago, and no one says a word. And if you mention Chicago, you just say Chicago because you're trying to dismiss police brutality. No, there are some people that authentically believe, hey man, the murder, the tragic deaths of so many young black men, regardless of the perpetrator, is a tragedy that we need to be concerned about and trying to solve, not just trying to solve white murderers' lives matter. And so I think Black Lives Matter is a joke. It's fraudulent. I think it's a distraction. I think it's a political tool that's taking us down a path that's not healthy for America in general and black people in particular.
But Jason, and I promise this will be the final question because I know I've went a little bit long, but is there a chance that the phrase that we say Black Lives Matter, is there a chance that maybe that's marketed different? Because it does. I mean, Black lives do matter, right? But it just seems like that's marketed in a way. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I'm trying to connect the words, but it is important, right? It's a catchphrase, but it's more to it.
I'm a Christian, and so I'm just sorry. As a Christian, all lives matter, and somehow we've turned that into an offensive statement. And so when I evaluate life and whatever tragedies are going on in society, I don't save my evaluation. Oh, well, hold on. Black has a special significance. As a black man, it does have a special significance because I'm a black man. But as a Christian, I don't prioritize that over all other lives. I'm just sorry, I don't. And so I just reject that. And I also don't need a special classification I don't need to go out and have you or anybody else, white, black, whatever, think that there's something special about my life because I'm black. I actually believe my life is valuable. And I concern myself at the end of the day with, does God think my life is special? Whether you, Ryan, or anybody else thinks my life is special is kind of irrelevant to me. It's not even kind of, it is irrelevant to me. And so I just don't see myself as a black person and us as a black race as some sort of crippled child that needs a special sort of love and appreciation and attention, or I'm just not happy. I'm just not one of those guys. My family loves me. My friends love me. And hopefully I'm doing things in my life that bring glory and honor to God, my family, and friends. And that's enough for me.
Well, I'm also a Christian, and those values that you're speaking of is very important to me. And I talk about my faith often here on this program. It does come with scrutiny, but I think that's something that God kind of promised us way back when we look at it, and you kind of look at a promise that he was given to us. And Jason, thank you for coming on for a couple of minutes here on our program. We're going to continue to follow your work. It's at Whitlock Jason, reverse there on the Twitter side of things, outkick.com. Outkick.com. He's partnered up, and in the last 10 days, going to take this thing to even bigger and better heights. As he said, here's what's next for me. Biggest and most exciting challenge of my career. It's outkick.com. Jason, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you helping us out today.
No problem. Thanks. Anytime.